We're here to talk about Jewish law. So, as I mentioned in the last session, we're actually going to start a multi-session topic, I think. We'll see how it goes today, which is a renewed look at the conservative movement's position on how to get to synagogue. Are you allowed to drive to synagogue? And what are you allowed to drive to synagogue? That's sort of the long way to say. The question of driving on Shabbat, in particular, a look at electrical cars, EV, and seeing if that is the ideal answer of how to discuss this. So you may be aware that and we're going to look at in particular quotes from the specific tshuva, but in 1950, the conservative movement passed two contrary decisions. One was that it is permitted, it is halachic, it is legal to drive a car on Shabbat to synagogue. And it passed another position which said it is not permitted to drive a car on Shabbat to synagogue. And perhaps you might know, but many people drive a car on Shabbat to synagogue. Right? There are some synagogues that put up a gate on the parking lot and won't allow anyone to drive into their property on Shabbat. We are not one of those, right? We permit driving on Shabbat to the synagogue, and part of this is based on this tshuva, this responsa, which came out in 1950. So it's more than 70 years old. And over the years, the conservative movement has discussed like what to do with this. Was this a proper tshuva? But that's sort of not the grounds for this discussion. Just recently, and you'll see, this is we're going to look at June 19th, 2023. So about literally 6 months ago, the rabbis in the conservative movement debated whether driving an electric car is kosher for Shabbat, or more preferred, perhaps. So I'm not sure if you read the articles, because it sort of made, for a couple of days it made national press, and then it disappeared. What do you think before we actually start delving into the text? What do you think the conservative movement ruled 6 months ago about electric cars on Shabbat?
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Eric.
Oh, okay. So thinking is that the operation of an internal combustion engine requires creating essentially many explosions in the engine to cause the car to move forward. That's lighting a fire. Turning on an electric vehicle.
That's a traditional conventional automobile.
Actually, internal combustion engine, a traditional car with
a
gasoline powered car. Sorry, I should have used a more colloquial way of saying it. I've seen ICE all over the literature about cars nowadays. So an electric car, you're basically turning on. It's like could be considered equivalent of turning on a light. You're causing a battery transaction to occur, but I don't consider those two the same. I think that it's worse to actually drive a gasoline car than to drive an electric car.
Okay, so that is
that's
what you think.
Without reading
that's
anything.
What you think, and that's what you think. Perhaps
without reading anything, that's my guess. That's my guess.
Okay, Tybal.
So is it too early for a cynical deduction?
Never too early for a cynical deduction.
So I'm going to quote Lou Greenberg, who says, where there's a rabbinic will, there's a halachic way. So the same body that based on what I read, that is seriously going to consider officiating an intermarriage again, because my take on that is you can live here with a green card, but it doesn't enable you to vote because you're not part of the system. And that's what I think halachic marriage. But a body that's inclining in a certain way, given the perception of electric cars, of course, they said they're wonderful. And that it's going to be this time only one tshuva, not an opposing. But that's a cynical deduction based on other observations.
So just to really summarize and boil it down, Tybal, I think what you're saying is that, well, what you said is there's not a contradictory position as in 1950, where there was a yes, you can drive to services in a car, and there was an opposing accepted position no. That right now, where the conservative movement is, and where it's going, and where other conversations are going, that the rule will be electric. There will only be one ruling, and yes, electric car, drive to Shabbat in electric car. Okay, good. I summarized you. Yeah, Nelson.
I guess I'm cynical in a slightly different way, but it's not cynical. If internal combustion engines are okay, permitted, not mandatory, to go to shul, then I assume also. But no one maybe will be. You're not required to take an electric car, but you're not required to go to shul either. But you're permitted to take an electric car.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Right, so if you know Jewish law and concepts of Jewish law, I'm going to mute you just because there's a lot of static on your line, Nelson. There's an argument called kol vachomer, if you've heard that. All the more so, a fortiori, right? So if the combustion engine, which like is a real big potential leap, as Eric explained, you're really sort of creating a fire with a traditional gas-powered car. If that was permitted by the conservative movement, then a battery-powered electric car, which is much less involved and much less a fire, then of course, all the more so, it will be permitted. Okay, any other opening salvos before we jump into it? Yeah, Ron.
I was always of the impression that it was forbidden to ride, not necessarily to start an automobile. And the Orthodox movement has approved some kind of a special cart that is electric, and they claim that the switch in it or something of this nature doesn't immediately turn it on. It goes in circles or something, and alternately turns something on that makes the motor active. So I don't know how that relates to the electric car, but it's similar.
Definitely similar. Yeah, there is a institute in Israel. I think it's called the Grumman Institute. I have to look it up, right? Which works on finding what I would call halachic loopholes to allow certain things, right? In changing the way electricity works in a traditional circuit. So, for example, there are some Orthodox synagogues that have a microphone system, but it's approved by this institute in Israel, which somehow, right, they circulate the electricity in a different way. And there are these golf carts, which you're talking about, right, which have been approved for use. They're usually used for a couple of purposes. Some of them are for disabled people getting around that are observant. And the other is for the IDF, that right, how can the base still sort of work at full level, and there are observant Jews that are serving in the IDF in non-war times. And during war times, all the restrictions for Shabbat disappear. But in non-war times, like how can you get along? And there are these Shabbat-approved electric vehicles, right? As Ron said, they're sort of like what you can't turn certain things on. There's only right an on and off, and it the battery's already charged and it doesn't start. And we're not going to get into the specifics. And if you want, I can delve a little bit deeper and we can do a study one day of this Grommet Institute, which goes into those things. So, right, it's already on the way of using electric powered things, but it's really typically only for specific uses, like for disabled people, the IDF, and other things. Are there any other opening salvos?
A lot of the Jewish hospitals in Cleveland,
Wait, say that again, Jackie?
a lot of the Jewish hospitals in Brooklyn have automatic elevators.
Right, there's Shabbat elevators, right? So it's still using electricity, but you're not touching it, right? It just sort of those are automated. They don't just like lights on a timer also, right? People have lights on a timer and different things. Okay. Glenda, did you want to say something?
I wanted to say something.
Okay. Yes.
I'm looking at it from a practical point of view. I think membership is going down in the Orthodox is okay, but the rest of the other ones are going down, especially with young people. And if we put that as a drawback, where are you going to be? So good luck with that.
And that gets a little bit to what Tybal was saying. Yeah. Now, there's another question, and this sort of goes to what Tybal is, and then I see Eric and Fear have their hand up. And this was always a question about the 1950 tshuva for driving, right? If the members of conservative synagogues were already driving to synagogue before they got a rabbinic approval to drive to synagogue, was it necessary to have a rabbinic approval to say it's okay to drive to service on Shabbat when people were already driving to services? Does that make sense? Yeah, Ron? And then we'll get back to...
Makes sense to a certain extent from a practical standpoint, but that had nothing to do with the fact that they were driving already, had nothing to do with approvals.
Correct, right. So the question is, who was really looking for the approval? Yeah, okay. All right, we got a lot of hands, and then actually I do want to start looking at the legal documents. So we'll do really fast lightning round, Sheer and Eric.
Okay, lightning round. The Shabbos elevator was mentioned, and we're just talking about electric cars today, but there's something called the appearance of, even though something is technically legal, it looks like something else. And
Yes,
I'm not sure we're going in.
Ma'arit ayin, right?
Yeah, I'm
so
not sure
this
we're
is the
going there.
example of, right, I don't eat at McDonald's, it's not kosher, but I'm driving, I really need a coffee. I need to pick me up.
Yep.
I'm really tired, right? Can I wear my kippah? Everybody knows me, I'm Rabbi Hal, right? Can I walk into McDonald's, right? Or is it going to give the appearance that this is a kosher McDonald's in Cleveland, Ohio, and that any Jew can then go in and order anything they want, right? It gives the appearance of me going somewhere that it's kosher. Yeah. We're not going to go there, but yeah.
Okay, I didn't think so. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nelson, lightning round.
I was just wondering whether there's no fire, I think, in an electric car at all.
Better not be.
And I was wondering whether some people would argue that if you're going to drive, it has to be electric.
We're going to get we will see what they conclude. Yeah. Okay. Tybal?
Where you just went to some of the essential nature of this movement in terms of the sibling movements, which is, I won't make it the joke, but there are all these jokes about the clergy being the shlichim for ritual halachic behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, the difference between the clergy on Shomer Shabbos, Shomer Kashrus, everything else, and the members saying, we may not want to do it, but we want our clergy doing it.
Right. Which is a statement of ideals, right? And it is a statement that, right, if we don't if we don't want our rabbis or cantor driving to synagogue or using electricity, right? It might be something that it's aspirational for the rest of the community, right? Not necessarily realistic or practical, right? Some people live in Chesterland. Some people live in, right? Like are they really going to walk to synagogue, right? Right. And by the way, now, right, which is another whole question, which I'm not going to get into, right? We're still Zooming and streaming. So what we're going to see in the tshuva is that the question of driving, just general, before we get into the type of automobile or vehicle, deals with two questions. Can you use electricity on Shabbat? And then that second question is the automobile that you're taking creating a fire, right? So those are two different questions, right? So obviously, if we're saying it's kosher to stream or Zoom, right, we're saying that at least for connecting to community and being able to pray and have a Shabbat observance, right, that we're allowing the use of electronics for that purpose. So that's sort of, these are all the questions. Okay, so let's jump in. So just to show you, I'm going to do some screen shares, show you what the conservative movement is talking about. Right, if you're anyone, this is accessible to anyone. The Rabbinical Assembly is the conservative movement's rabbi organization. On their website, this is not the password protected member only one. They actually started a new thing where now you can, they have the CJLS Tshuva database, which is searchable. It never used to be searchable, not until a couple of months ago. So now you can go in and you can search by category, if you can see my screen. I don't know if that's helpful. At least you can search by author, and you can search by title or text if you want to put something in. And this is actually all the tshuva. This is in backwards order. So it also used to, so this is the newest tshuva that were accepted, and then it keeps going through. So just to show you here, contrary to I think what Tybal said, there were two main positions accepted, which is we're going to look at the first one we're going to look at, which is this one, electric cars on Shabbat, a renewed responsum on the Sabbath. And this is the opposing one, a new responsum on the Sabbath. So these two were accepted as opposing. And then in addition to that, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 short position papers or responses written by other rabbis about the tshuva, which I guess I'll you don't have to wait for the punchline. A new responsum on the Sabbath, this one says no driving at all, even electric cars. And this one is going to say, which we're going to look at, is electric cars is preferred and is even allowed on Shabbat. So that's sort of where we're at. Tybal, question before we actually start looking in.
Just a comment that like seeing Danny Nivens, where I'm seeing his name, versus Avram Reiser and Susan Grossman, Joel Rembam, it's just interesting to see who's where and who's partnering with whom.
Correct. Right. So the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, who makes these rules, if you don't know, it's 25 conservative rabbis that sit on this committee. And some of them are halachic experts, and some of them are like me, a congregational rabbi who has, some training, has obviously studied Talmud and law, but also is more on the practical side. So it's important to get an idea of practical. It's not just an Ivy Tower decision, but it's a practical decision of how Jews are living in suburbia and in Jewish life. And that's an important part of this. I'm just going to mute you, Nelson, because I'm getting static. Okay. Yes, and as Tybal said, some of them are written by individuals and some of them are groups. Actually, anyone, you don't have to be on the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards to have a tshuva, to have a question and answer brought. and discussed, but oftentimes it is members of the committee who do it. Okay, so we're going to jump in. Let me see what you know what I think they have? I saw your chat to me, Dave, one congregant. I think they have a representative from either United Synagogue, either Men's Club or Sisterhood. I'm not sure that they are voting members, though. I think they can give commentary but can't vote. Okay. And if we want, at some point, some of my friends are on the CJLS, so we can maybe zoom them in. Okay, so this one, we're going to look at the electric cars on Shabbat one, and that's this. Okay, so just again, if you look at the top, this is the introduction. You can see that it was approved on June 19th, 2023. Oftentimes it takes years for these tshuvas to go through because they get read, they get discussed, and they're sort of sent back to the author to say you don't have enough proof, to say, you know, we're not sure about your logic, we want more sources, or there's all different reasons while they'll send it back. So this was voted on. You can see 10 yes, 6 no's, 5 abstentions, and it's approved. So what do you think about that? That there were 10 yeses, there were 6 no's and 5 abstentions, and this got approved. Comments on that?
It's controversial.
Right, controversial, obviously not unanimous, right?
Oh, no means.
Right,
It
and
was
even
10 to 11.
right, 10 to 11, although, right, it's unclear if those abstaining really voted no or they're unclear, right? So it's just interesting, right? And I'll show you for a second because we don't have time to look at it today. Next time, we're going to probably look at the next one, assuming we have time, just to show you. This was the opposing view, right? That was approved by 11, no were 5, and 5 abstained. And if you start going through the list, I didn't actually check to see if some people said yes to both, but you can. You can theoretically say yes to yes and yes to no, because you're basing it on the halachic validity of it. Is it a sound?
I think I saw Elliot Dorff's name on the yeses on both of them.
As I said, you can vote yes on both. And actually, he wrote one of those side commentaries, and he actually wrote. Now I'm remembering because I prepared this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just refreshing myself. He actually writes in his side commentary why he said yes to both. And we'll get there. We'll get there in time.
Where I was going was that, in addition to looking at the vote itself, I always look to see who's on which side.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most of these names don't mean anything to me anymore. The committee has changed too much, and
yeah.
So I mean, I used to be able to look to see who's on which side to see if I would follow it or not when it was this. Yeah. When this kind of discrepancy.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you a couple of the names, if that's okay. Since we're here, right? Adam Baldachin is a pulpit rabbi. They don't know Emily Barton. I think Suzanne Brody is a pulpit rabbi. Elliot Dorff is professor of Jewish law at AJU and considered one of our halachic leaders. He was a professor of mine on biomedical ethics. David Fine is graduated a few years before me. He is really focused on halacha. He is a congregational rabbi, but he does do a lot of work on halacha, and you can see he's one of the authors of this tshuva. Judith Hauptman is a Talmud professor, and I had her for Talmud. Barry Leff is a congregational rabbi, and as you can see, is the other author. Danny Nevins was the dean of the rabbinical school for a number of years. He actually just left to go back into, now he's working in a day school. He was a rabbi, congregational rabbi in Detroit before he went to JTS. Tracy Rosen, I forget what she does. Ellen Wollens Fields is the executive director of Women's League, which is sisterhood, and she's a rabbi. Right? Josh Heller is a rabbi in Atlanta, also considered a legal expert in the conservative movement. Amy Levin is a rabbi in Israel, conservative rabbi in Israel. Micah Peltz is a congregational rabbi in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, similar congregation to ours. Joel Putkowski is in Teaneck, New Jersey, congregational rabbi. Rabbi Reisner is, again, another one of our legal experts in the conservative movement. And I'm not sure about Miriam Spitzer. Rabbi Jamie Alpert is actually one of our best friends. She actually just left the pulpit and is working on becoming a coach and a trainer, and actually has done some work through our wellness center. But she was a congregational rabbi for about 18 years. Pamela Barmash is the head of the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards currently. She's the chair. She's a professor of Jewish studies and a legal expert. She actually teaches at Wash U. Robert Scheinberg is in Hoboken, New Jersey, a congregational rabbi. He's one of the editors of our Siddur and has a strong focus in liturgy and prayer. Morty Schwartz was my roommate in rabbinical school. He is based at JTS. He's like Mashkiach Ruchani. He's a spiritual advisor for the rabbinical students and teaches Jewish law and Talmud. And I'm not sure about Ariel Staffenmacher. So that's sort of the background of who these people are. So you can see the question, is it permissible to drive an electric car on Shabbat? And they're going back to this original tshuva in 1950 from the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, written by Morris Adler, Jacob Agus, and Theodore Friedman. They co-wrote it. Again, as Ty will mention, it's often interesting sort of who combines together. And they wrote, and this is their reason for their decision. Someone want to read it for us? Refraining?
I'll read.
Great.
Refraining from the use of a motor vehicle is an important aid in the maintenance of the Sabbath spirit of repose. Such restraint aids, moreover, in keeping the members of the family together on the Sabbath. However, where a family resides beyond reasonable walking distance from the synagogue, the use of a motor vehicle for the purpose of synagogue attendance shall be in no wise be construed as a violation of the Sabbath, but on the contrary, such attendance shall be deemed an expression of loyalty to our faith.
Okay, so what does that mean in English?
It means if they're going to shul, they can use the car.
Yes.
Because if they live too far away.
If you live too far away, what happens if you live like me, 4 houses away? According to this tshuva, so you live 4 houses away.
The word reasonable is in here, and maybe the average person would think your distance, I think it's just the same distance from the intersection to the front door than from your house to the intersection. So about the average person might say no. You actually would say yes. Say no, you don't. Your distance is not too far.
Right.
It's not just the distance. What about the condition of the person?
Condition of the person. Or what about the weather?
Or a foot of snow on the ground.
Right. What about the weather?
Yep.
Right. So it's interesting. And again, I don't want to
Those
get
circumstances might dictate other.
And that's again not the focus, because I want to. Obviously, we're going to get to this question of electric cars, hybrid cars, and conventional gas-powered cars. But it's just interesting to see that. Right. This was during the suburban spread of the 1940s and the 1950s, following World War II. Right. The conservative movement, that was the height of the movement, growing. Right. People were moving out to the suburbs, but the synagogues weren't. Think about even Temple on the Heights, B'nai Yeshurun at the time. Right. Right. Temple on the Heights was in Mayfield and Lee. Right.
Yep.
And where were people moving in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s?
To the Heights, weren't they?
Right. They were in the
Cleveland.
Heights, but starting, I think
George,
starting
Pepper Pike.
slowly. In 1980, we moved to Pepper Pike, right?
So the 1950s and early 60s, I can speak, this I can speak from. So I went to a public elementary school in Cleveland Heights. So an average class size of 30, maybe 3 were not Jewish. So
Yeah.
the population
Large.
was just
Significant.
unbelievably overwhelming. And so I think in the time, at least when I was growing up, the Heights was the place. It was a tremendously large population.
Yeah.
Now, to consider the practicality of walking to Temple on the Heights, I can't think of too many, other than there was like one street that was so at the edge of the parking lot, maybe, but that's it. I don't believe anybody. Let's look at the two, Park Synagogue and Heights Temple, where they were situated. I don't think anybody could practically walk to either one of them.
Yeah, not easy.
I'll disagree with Eric. I mean,
oh yeah,
because I know when I was studying for my bar mitzvah, I walked home from there many times. It was 2 miles.
Wow.
All right, good. Yeah, Nelson and then Bob.
I was wondering whether the implication of this ruling was that you had to move. If you moved a long distance, you had to go to the closest synagogue rather than the one that you had to drive to.
That actually is, and we'll see. We're not going to look at it, but there have been some renewed responses before now. We're 70 years, but in the 90s, there were a couple of responses. And then in 2012, and they actually do talk about the question of should you be required to go to your closest synagogue, not necessarily the one you prefer, if you're going to drive. So it's a good question. Bob. Oh, you're muted. Unmute.
The backside of Park Synagogue was right close to Berkeley and Bainbridge and DeSoto and that side of Cleveland Heights. And that was close to the Taylor Road section of Judaism in that time. Yeah.
So, right, but we can see that in 1950, the conservative movement said, right, the beyond reasonable walking distance, right, you can drive to synagogue. And as he lays out in this next sentence, right, there are various concerns with driving on Shabbat. The responsive focuses on two issues, as we said. One, use of electricity, and two is the ignition of an internal combustion engine. And those are really the two things to discuss. And as they go over in this tshuva, this next paragraph, since an electric car does not contain an internal combustion engine, right, then this is that all the more so. This was Nelson's first comment, right? Like, if there isn't a combustion engine, then all the more so, right? Then do we really have a question here that with an electric car, right? It should automatically be, yeah, electric car, good and better. But then you'll see he lays out that there are three things, and actually there are four to discuss. Shabbat boundaries. There's actually an idea that you're not allowed to travel a certain distance on Shabbat. There's a maximum distance, right? Because again, you're supposed to sort of stay in the hood. So does driving break that? You might know that one of the 39 forbidden categories on Shabbat is carrying. You're not allowed to carry, right, outside an eruv. So if you're driving a car, are you carrying anything? Or is it essential to carry something when you drive a car? And then this question of this thing called shvut, which is basically boils down to spirit of Shabbat. Have you ever heard that idea of that you're not allowed to do things that are not in the spirit of Shabbat? Right, so those aren't things like you can necessarily put like if you're reading the Torah, it doesn't say you can't do it, but it's not really in the spirit of Shabbat, so you don't do it. And that's what Shvut is. And then he's actually going to present they're going to present a fourth category, which is the idea of repairing something. So you might know that one of the reasons we don't play musical instruments on Shabbat is because if your string on a guitar breaks in the middle of playing a song, what are you going to probably do? You're going to fix your guitar. You're going to go and put on a new string and fix the guitar, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. Right? You're not allowed to tune an instrument on Shabbat. There's like certain things you're not allowed to do. So that was always this question about like riding a bike on Shabbat. Are you allowed to ride a bike on Shabbat or not? right? And it is like if the chain comes off and a bike breaks, you're going to try to fix it, right? So this is one of these like we're prohibiting something which theoretically you can do, but we're prohibiting it because if something goes awry, you're going to break Shabbat. This is that fence around the Torah idea. So that's the other question with an electric car or driving or whatever else is if there's like an issue, are you going to repair it? Okay. Comments, thoughts before we go forward?
Yeah, you can get a refrigerator or a stove that has a Shabbos setting.
Yeah, Shabbat mode. We have one. Yeah.
So would we be requesting a Shabbat mode in an electric car so that when you open the door, the light doesn't come on?
It's a great question. Yeah, or if I'll extend it, and it's a little bit different, but to the point where we get autonomous driving better than it exists now, right? I'm assuming at some point you're going to be able to pre-program your car to go somewhere, right? You're going to say at 7 o'clock, right? Right, this car is going to drive to Bnei Yeshurun, and at 8:30 it's going to drive back from Bnei Yeshurun to my house. Right? So literally, I'm just going in the door, and maybe as Bob said, if there's a way to even have like the door open automatically and not touch anything, like almost like a Shabbat elevator. Right? Is that even better? Right? Is there going to be a Shabbat mode on a car? It's a good question. Other comments, thoughts from, we really just read the opening so far. I know it's 12:40 and we're only got to the first page. Other comments, thoughts? Okay, so this opening thing, so first I want to deal with this question of electricity, right? So I'm just going to read it for time's sake. The use of electricity on Shabbat is essentially a modern question that could only be talked about since the discovery of electricity. Okay, not so profound. There are therefore no precedents from pre-modern sages that speak directly to the question. In their discussion of electricity on Shabbat, those three rabbis from 1950 note that there is a difference of opinion as to whether the use of electricity is forbidden from the Torah as a form of fire, right? So when you're using electricity, is it one of the 39 forbidden things, which is lighting a fire, which is 100% forbidden? Or is it forbidden in a more lenient way by the rabbis as a secondary Shabbat prohibition, shvut, which is it's not in the spirit of Shabbat? They also note that there's a difference of opinion on the question of whether a spirit of Shabbat prohibition can be set aside for the sake of doing a mitzvah, right? So if spirit of Shabbat is subjective, right, that this is whether in spirit of Shabbat, if the thing that we're doing is actually for a mitzvah, visiting a sick person, going to say Kaddish for my parent who's deceased, right, or something else, right, then is there the ability to be lenient when it is already a lenient question that the rabbis are not 100% clear on? It's already a question, if I'm making myself clear. They ruled that the use of electricity on Shabbat should be considered forbidden as a spirit of Shabbat, but not a violation of the Torah, of the Bible. And they further ruled that the shvut, as any shvut, can be set aside for the sake of a mitzvah and the enjoyment of Shabbat. Have we confused you yet? So the second question then is, right, this is where they get in the quotes in this next thing. We declare, this is from 1950. We're still not in today. We declare it to be permitted to use electric lights on Shabbat for the purpose of enhancing the enjoyment of Shabbat or reducing personal discomfort or in the performance of doing a mitzvah. So in 1950, these conservative rabbis ruled that use of electricity is permitted on Shabbat for reducing personal discomfort or for doing a mitzvah. You can turn lights on and off. You can, right? They're actually going to extend it to like, they don't actually, another person, but like calling your parents on Shabbat. And then they're going to actually debate about even like watching TV. Are there things you're allowed to watch on TV versus things you're not allowed to watch on TV? And again, now we're like getting like off the topic of driving, so I'm not going to go deep into that. Comments, thoughts, Tybal?
It reminded me that two different statements about Shabbos in Vayikra and Devarim, which is one is to remember, and the other gets translated as, I can't think of the usual JPS, but I'm going to say enjoy. It just occurred to me that in a choice about remembering versus I'll say celebrate, enjoy, whatever. This one went to the second one.
Okay, yeah. So just to be clear, I want to clarify. There's one last thing, which is that you are allowed to use electricity on Shabbat, except if you're doing a forbidden thing. Again, this is all subjects. Like, you still are not allowed to cook, right? Let's say you have an electric stovetop, right?
Yep.
Or an oven, right? Like you can't, now I just told you you're allowed to use electricity on Shabbos, right? But that doesn't mean that you can do one of the 39 forbidden things with electricity, right? Because you're still getting the end result of a cooked dinner on Shabbos. Make sense? It's a slippery slope, though, right? It's what the rabbis have always been concerned about, is allowing one thing and then you allow more. Okay. Right. Basically, I'm not going to go through it, but then this tshuva presents the next 70 years of arguments whether conservative Jews are allowed to use electricity or not. And basically, there's a lot of yeses and a lot of nos. And they present both sides, a lot of yeses and a lot of nos. So many rabbis say yes, and some rabbis say no. And if you've studied with me before, there was Rabbi Danny Nevins, who was the dean of the rabbinical school, put a tshuva out in 2012 where he literally goes through like 30 electrical things and decides, are you allowed to use it on Shabbat or not? Like a Kindle e-reader, a coffee grinder, and he goes through and he actually decides like what is permitted and what's not. So it's interesting. All right, so this is the sort of summation piece from Rabbi Newlander, who was another rabbi from the 50s. It must be clearly understood that whatever use of electric apparatus we permit on Shabbat, we allow only on condition that use is in consonance with the spirit of Shabbat. All right, comments, thoughts? We will hopefully be getting to driving soon. Comments, thoughts? Yeah, Tybal?
I'm sorry, I may have missed it, but isn't some of it not just consonants, but whether you're turning it on and off? So in other words, in my experience, conservative shuls will turn the microphone system on before Shabbos, and that's okay, but Orthodox shuls won't even have it on then. And who was it, Bob or someone talking about the light going on, opening the car door, people who unscrew the light bulb in their refrigerators. Somehow I missed that piece of it, the on and off, not just the constant.
Well, based on that, the on and off would be okay. Based on like what I was presenting to you, like from Rabbi Newlander, is a lenient ruling that you are allowed to use electricity. on Shabbat as long as it's within the spirit of Shabbat. So there, and personal discomfort and doing a mitzvah, right? So according to that position, turning a light on and off would be okay, or a microphone on and off, right? At Shul, we adhere to a stricter level. We don't use electricity. We make use, this is where you're getting, we make use of electricity that's already on. Right? So, for example,
where is the division? Where is the division between it's already on when we see it, but maintenance turned it on Shabbos?
Yeah. So, right. This is the Shabbos Goy question, right? Right. So the idea is that you're actually not really supposed to ask other people to break it for you, even who are not Jewish, except if it's some sort of understood, like it's part of their job. And that's what the Shabbat Goy is. That's the idea that that maintenance, they're actually doing it for their job, and that they're hopefully that it's even potentially supposed to be that they're doing it a little bit for themselves.
All right, so here's an example then. I have a chauffeur in an electric car. It's part of his job to take me around 7 days a week, so therefore I can use the car on Shabbos.
With him driving.
With him driving.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean that even for a gas car.
Potentially, yeah. That's probably better. But yeah, let me think about it a little more. Okay, so now we're jumping around. These are the 4 questions to the idea of, so the first one is about repairing. Now, if you are driving an electric car and the electric car breaks down, are you going to repair it?
Let's go back to the bicycle for a minute.
Okay, the bicycle, yes.
If the chain falls off, is that a repair that's prohibited, or only if it breaks?
That's a question. You're tuning it. It's a question. I've always understood that it is not an acceptable repair on Shabbat. But I guess it's a question. Because it's not usable without it. And then you're putting the final thing to make it usable again. Because you're not supposed to complete something on Shabbat. So at least what they hold here is, if you can see, we do not hold to a decree of Shema Yitakein for things that require an expert to repair it. Is an expert necessary to repair an electric vehicle with skilled labor?
I think that's a yes.
That's a yes, right? So here they're saying, opposed to potentially a bicycle or some other thing, right? You are not going to repair your, insert your electric vehicle, your Rivian or whatever, your Tesla, go down the list, your Mustang, right? So that's not really a question for electric vehicles. So you don't have to discuss that. Okay. Next question is this idea of Shabbat boundaries. Like, how wide a boundary are you allowed to go? So the idea was that people were supposed to be close together, and it's from this quote in Exodus 16:29. Al yetze ish mimkamo b'yom hashvi'i. One shall not go out from one's place on the 7th day. That's the Torah says. And you can see in the Mishnah Torah, Maimonides understands the biblical measure as 12 mil and 2,000 amot, which is approximately 8 miles. Now, what I didn't say is it's not that you can't go 8 miles. It's that you can't go 8 miles from one town to another that is not continuous. So within 8 miles, if I am in Pepper Pike and I walk 8 miles west towards downtown, where am I going to end up?
55th and Euclid.
Yeah, I'm going to end up in Cleveland proper, right?
Or maybe only University Circle. I have to think about that.
Yeah, but pretty far, right? That's not what this is talking about, because regardless of the fact that they're different municipality boundaries that I'm crossing, it's actually still considered one area because there's not any open space. There's not a significant opening of space, so it's actually it's considered one unit, and then I'm not breaking this idea of Shabbat Tchum. Tchum is boundary. I'm not breaking the boundary. It's only if I go somewhere where there's no houses or buildings between 8 miles. So I don't even know where that is in our area.
Let's talk about the other direction for a second. Let's say you go east. Can you go down the Cuyahoga Valley and back up the other side? Assuming that is within your 8 miles, I think, from your house.
It could be, yeah. So according to this,
there's very few houses in that if you go that way.
Yeah, according to this, probably no.
It's the Chagrin Valley, anyway.
What did I say?
Cuyahoga.
Well, you know where I meant. Starts with a C.
Right, so that's a question. Like if, going from Ron's place in Chesterland to, B'nai Yeshurun, it's still pretty populated. I don't know. Yeah. But
it wouldn't be
closer.
considered country.
Yeah. But maybe further. Yeah. Right. But the idea is that you're not supposed to leave, mainstream civilization. Right. So the question is, do we have people that are we've actually had people that drive from Erie to come to us, at times, or, think about.
We have Twinsburg members. I know that.
Twinsburg are, you can maybe argue between Solon and whatever, it's still continuous, right? But are there other places that are further? There's a couple I'm working with for conversion that lives in Sandusky. Is driving from Sandusky to B'nai Yeshurun, is there going to be a patch where there's going to be no civilization for a while? Close to 8 miles.
I think there is.
Yeah.
It would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think the question would come up if you're talking like a Westlake or something like that, which is some distance away, but you have the entire western suburbs and the city of Cleveland in between.
Right. So it gets questionable. And again, like we're getting a little into it, but this is that
topic,
question.
But actually, the Eastern question is the better one, because it doesn't take long to get into very rural area territory, just like a few miles east of the shul.
Yeah. So this is their answer. If you want to just see. The detailed laws of Tchumim are beyond the scope of this paper. Oh, okay. But as a general rule, one should not travel more than 8 miles or 13 kilometers from one's home if in a rural area, or from the edge of the built-up development in urban and suburban area. Right? So it's just a question like, yes, we're allowing this, but it's getting questionable. Carrying, right? This is one of the 39 forbidden things. It's a little hard to understand why you're not allowed to carry when you're not in an Eruv, and I don't have the time in the next 3 minutes to teach you all about Eruv, but I'm going to show you what they say, right? You're not allowed to carry things, theoretically. Now, if you're driving an electric vehicle, are you carrying anything? Because remember, this is the tshuva that's going to say in the end, we're not going to get to the answer, but they're going to say, you can drive an electric vehicle. Do you have to carry anything?
Do you need key? I don't know electric. Do you need keys the way you need keys for standard?
You need at least something. I know some of the cars have like literally it looks like a credit card, and that's the key, but you need something. Yeah. I mean, do you need a driver's license?
Maybe not.
Yes,
You can always
probably
produce-
do.
You need a
Well, I mean, I
battery.
think as of
But
now, no,
Rabbi-
but you're not carrying. That's within the car. But yeah, like what do you
Rabbi-
literally need on your person? Yeah.
You need the driver's license because if there's a medical emergency, they need your photo
Yeah.
ID and your insurance card to treat you. So that's in a different category because that could be pekuach nefesh, carrying the driver's license.
Okay. Right. But right, here's the question though, right? That what they're going to ask though then is if you're required to carry your driver's license, that's sort of negate the whole thing because now we're saying carrying is one of the 39 forbidden things, right? So in order to drive a car, drive an electric car, you need to carry your license. So does that negate everything then? Or as you said, pikuach nefesh, but this is one of those things where, okay, we're allowing you to drive, but then you're saying in order to save your life, you need to carry the license. Is that really logical then to allow you to drive?
But you
So
you put the license in a plastic thingy and wear it out on a chain around your neck. So then you're not carrying, it's clothing.
Right. Or you connect it somehow to your clothes. It's your belt buckle, right? Have you ever seen those key holders that is a belt buckle or a tie clip? Right. Your talus bag is your license plate. Actually, you should theoretically have your talus already at shul, so you're not carrying it. So I'm going to give you their answer. And by the way, what they actually talk here is that riding a bike is probably akin to carrying. Like if you're pedaling, are you sort of carrying the bike? And this famous Rabbi Ben Ishchai, who's a Sephardic rabbi, very well respected, was actually lenient on the use of bicycles, that he did not consider it carrying, because he compared it to a cart, like a push cart, and that those were allowed on Shabbat. And I'm sort of like jumping around and going fast, but just to show you, even if driving the vehicle where there's no eruv from an area is an eruv, is not a violation. One must still be careful to use the vehicle to carry items from one domain to another. Items within the car before Shabbat should remain within the car until after Shabbat, right? If you had stuff in your trunk, don't touch it, let it be. Unless the entire trip is within an eruv. The vehicle should not be used to transport anything. Do not make a kugel and drive it to somebody's house on Shabbat, right? By the way, I don't know if you know, like in our kitchen on Shabbat, you're not allowed to bring food into our kitchen once Shabbat has already started, because the synagogue is actually not within the eruv, unfortunately. Right, so you should not transport anything. You should bring it before Shabbat. That's why you should leave your talus bag at shul, or you can drop it off Friday afternoon. Here we go. Of course, one should have one's driver's license when driving, as required by most authorities, but the license and other emergency wallet items should be secured within your vehicle. Carrying one's wallet, as well as contact with the car in general, raises the additional issue of muksa, which is another thing, whether you're allowed to touch it or not. So we're going to wrap it up. We didn't get the answer, and we didn't actually get to the discussion of the EV versus the hybrid versus the conventional gas. We're going to do that next week. Actually, not next week. Sorry, you got to wait 2 weeks. I'm in New York with our teen trip, our Hineni trip. In 2 weeks, we're going to do part 2. We're going to talk about the EV, and then we're going to look at the opposing position, which says no electric vehicles on Shabbat. Questions, comments?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Sorry, Alina. When I first saw this announcement, because I hadn't been able to come before and then the time changed, I thought there were only going to be 2. I'm not at all complaining.
Oh, no, that's just for I can't do every Monday. So yeah, most months we're going to do at least 2 weeks. Just I have other Monday commitments, so it's sort of
But
like,
so this is now in theory
this
and
is going to be continuing. We're going to study Jewish law. Yeah.
as your schedule allows.
As my,
Oh,
right. So just not every Monday. Yeah. Yeah. As many Mondays as we can do, I can do a lunchtime session.
Where did the 8-mile rule come from?
Yeah, that's, now you're going to get, so where did the Tchumim come from that was specifically, it's based on a old calculation of distance. That was the distance between towns in ancient times. That's the short story. They didn't want you going from town to town on Shabbat in old times. It probably was dangerous, number one.
Hmm.
You know, they didn't have cars. Like you literally like would walk the entire day of Shabbat. They didn't want you walking 8 hours on Shabbat to go from town to town. Or not 8 hours, a few hours, but yeah. But that's the reason. And Helena, I can look it up, but it's in the Talmud where the rabbis debate how much it is. And actually, if you've ever heard, every once in a while, there's a halachic podcast, Responsa Radio, from my friend Ethan Tucker, Rabbi Ethan Tucker. And I remember he addressed this like 3 or 4 years ago in a podcast, like why specifically that was the distance. So I'll see if I can find it and I'll give it to you. All right. Thanks for learning with me. Have a good week, everybody.